I'm doing great. That's a great crowd. How you doing, man?
They're lovely. It's so nice to see you. Elephant in the room. NBA basketball finals. You and I are ride or die New York Knickerbocker fans.
Yes.
It's been a disappointing, and to have them just end the playoffs there and not continue, I thought was the right move.
Oh, yes. You think after you blow a 17-point lead with over 6 minutes left, 14 with 2:51 left, 9 with 52 seconds left, and you end up losing game one. I didn't want to admit it to the world at that time, but I knew they were done.
You did know they were done.
I kind of knew.
My son was there in the rafters. When Jalen Brunson hit, there was a point, there was probably like a minute and some left. They had a 9-point lead.
Right.
They hit it, and he made the fatal mistake that a Knicks fan, and now he knows, I had to school him on it. He did the bye-bye. He did the bye-bye on a selfie.
Here's the crime. The crime.
Can he be arrested for
the crime? He should. He should. And I'm going to tell you why.
All right, sir.
Because who does the bye-bye? That's Steph Curry, the greatest shooter God has ever created.
Yes.
That guy, in the 2009 draft, was drafted 7th overall.
Yes, I know.
Who had the 8th pick? It was the Knicks.
And who did we take?
So.
Who did we take? Hill? Who did we take? Somebody's not even in the league.
Yeah, Jordan. Yeah.
Jordan Hill.
Yes. So my point to you is that if you were that close, yet you're so far, because you missed out on him, you would think you would know better than doing that. That doesn't belong to you. You're a Knick. You're not a Warrior.
Steve, he's just a boy. He's just a boy. He's doing his best.
Children learn at a very young age. You've got to know better. You've got to know better. We cannot have.
I've raised him poorly. I made him a Mets fan too. He's got to have some fun.
You did a good job.
Well, thank you.
It's just that when it comes to sports, none of us are perfect.
No, I appreciate that. Now, you, though, are into everything now. You've been doing a political commentary. You were on a show where you did a roundtable with the president, Donald Trump.
Cuomo, News Nation, Chris Cuomo, Bill O'Reilly. President Trump came on because of Bill O'Reilly. It was an interesting evening, to say the least. He called in for a half hour. He was rambling. I still don't know what he said. I mean, he said a lot. He said a lot, and I brought up HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, asking him about his contribution or the contribution he was intending to make to them. And he says, "I love the black people, the blacks. I love them, Stephen."
He became a Rastafarian?
Something like that. Something like that. Without the dreads.
Can I tell you the crazy part? Stephen brought up Harvard and what was happening at Harvard.
And he brought up Harlem.
And the president goes, "You know, Stephen, Harlem is, it's coming." And I thought, does he think Harvard is in Harlem, or does he just hear Har and just goes, Lem?
I guess so. I don't have the answer to that question, but it was an interesting experience, to say the least. Sitting there talking to him about it, and you know what? And then they asked him, they said, you know, if there's anything that you think you did wrong, anything that you think you would correct, whatever, he said, honestly, I can't think of anything. I think I've been pretty close to perfect. And I said, that's him. That's the Donald Trump I've always known.
Did you know him prior to this?
I knew him prior to him running for the presidency. I've often told this story. In 2014, he wanted to purchase the NFL's Buffalo Bills.
Right.
The price tag was $1.4 billion.
That's it?
He had one at the time, yes, because it's over $6 billion now with the Commanders and all that stuff. But at the time, it was $1.4 billion. My sources tell me he had 1.1. And he said to me, he literally called me in 2014, and he said, Stephen, I'm going to tell you this right now, and this is a quote. If them motherfuckers in my way, I'm going to get them all back. I'm going to run for president. Those are his exact words. And so the NFL often jokes with me, so it's our fault, when I tell them that story. And I said, yeah.
May I please have a close-up, please?
Yes.
People of Buffalo. Give him the game. Save us. How is that possible? Now, why did he call you for the purpose of putting together a group?
Essentially, he's putting the word out. He was putting the word out that if this doesn't happen, he wanted to do it, and this should happen. I'm Donald Trump. I'm very popular. I'm well known. I'm worth over $1 billion. I should be able to purchase an NFL team if I want it.
Right.
And if I can't get it, it's because they're getting in my way. That was his position. Their position was, you didn't have enough money.
You didn't have enough money.
That was their position.
He was already in what, the USFL or the
That's right. That was years ago. That was in the 80s. But he was this was 2014.
Right.
And that was the last time that I had spoken to him until that town hall meeting on News Nation.
And as you watch all these things unfold, do you think to yourself, yep, he got us all back?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. How could you not?
He did that.
I mean, because listen, there are things, I don't think anybody, I'm a centrist at heart. I always vote, I usually vote Democrat. The only Republican I've ever voted for was Chris Christie, the former governor of New Jersey. Outside of that, I've always voted Democrat. But there's a lot of things that I think can be done differently. I thought the left blew this election more so than him winning it.
Really?
Oh yeah, the left definitely blew it. I thought that the progressive left, the extreme left really ruined the election for the Democrats. And that's that's how I view it. It's the truth. And I think that because that happened, it positioned him to get away with a lot of things. His position on immigration has been well known. He let you know what he was going to do. A lot of times.
Sure, he did it on an escalator.
Yeah, how about that?
The most powerful mode of transportation there is.
He doesn't care. And here's the thing about it is, listen, don't be surprised when you see him and you're thinking about pettiness or you're thinking about vengeance or whatever.
Right.
He's viewing it as they tried to put me in prison. They tried to put me behind bars for the rest of my life.
Right.
I'm going to get them all. And he won't just openly admit it. He'll say stuff like, I wouldn't do that, but I'd have the right to if I wanted to.
Right.
He's letting you know. And the people that he's
also doing it.
Oh, yeah. To a degree, yes, he is. No question about it.
But don't you think, it would be reasonable to say that January 6th was a moment that should have maybe gotten him some legal, that wasn't a happenstance.
I am one of those people who firmly believes it was an insurrection. There's no question about it. I'm not backing up from that. But the reality is that I pay attention to 70+ million people who felt otherwise or did not give a damn. Because what they said was, we're looking at this country, the state of affairs that exists within this nation, and we're concerned about ourselves. We ain't got time for all that. We don't care whether he's in jail or not. We might care if he's in the White House or not, but we don't care whether he's in jail or not. And if you're the left and you engaged in what the right would say is lawfare, trying to use the courts to keep from having to compete with him. And then you're putting forth some of these policies, whether it's transgender issues or other stuff that they would bring up. You had a lot of people that saying that's not where our focus should lie. We're not
but don't you think that's their focus?
Whose focus?
The right.
Okay.
I feel like the right is far more focused on where you go to the bathroom than the left. I feel like the left is a more laissez-faire. Look, I think the left is... It's easy to paint the extreme and to create a hyperbolic vision of the left as this woke army. I think it's exaggerated.
Yes, but here's the problem, John.
Yeah.
You can be on national TV every single week doing a phenomenal job that you do.
One day a week.
I know that. I said every week. I just say, well, I know this. Once this. I said every week.
One day.
I said every week. I didn't say every day.
All right.
The point is that even though you're pointing that out, when you're running for an election, it's about what's going to win. And they knew that was a strategy that was going to be a winning strategy for them.
But then how is it the left's fault if it's not real?
Because you got to know what works and what doesn't and fight fire with fire. You got to know how to win it, how to win.
They called him Hitler.
It's good. Well, did that work?
No.
Did that work?
No.
Exactly. A matter of fact, a lot of people dismissed that argument because they accused the left of engaging in the extreme because you didn't want to compete against them. Think about this. The man rolled down the escalators in 2015, okay? He's dominated the GOP and the Republican Party since that moment in time.
No question.
Who the hell has done that for the left? It was Hillary's turn in 2016, even though Bernie was gaining traction. In 2020, Representative Clyburn had to come to the rescue in South Carolina in order for Joe Biden to even be relevant. And then obviously with COVID and everything that had transpired and how Trump handled that particular situation, it favored the Democrats. Then you get into office. Biden promised to be a transitional president, a one-term president. I'm just here to be as a stopgap to make sure that we can return to normalcy. And then the second he got in and there was no red wave in 2022, he said, hell with that, I ain't leaving. And then what happened?
Once you touch the ring, though. Once you touch the ring.
There you go. It's an addiction. It's an addiction, right? And then sure enough, when the red wave didn't happen and the Democrats won more than anybody expected them to in 2022, they let them get away with it. And think about it. You call yourself the left, you call yourself a progressive party, and you are standing up at the State of the Union clapping and chanting 4 more years for a man that was going to be 82.
Right.
Once the election, once the inauguration day took place with 4 more years. And then America looked at you and said, have you lost your ever-loving mind? That's what the hell happened. It's very simple. It ain't that damn complicated. It really isn't.
But that seems to be at cross purposes, Stephen A. Smith. Okay. And let's first take this.
Okay, please.
Let me take
you
a
are
different
doing it.
position.
You're doing a very good job.
Because you are saying, you're gonna have me on that show.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Come on.
What time does it take it? Is it only
10
once a
a.m.
week?
10 a.m. 5 days a week, 10 a.m. to noon. You come one day.
Don't grind me down to a
You come
nothing,
one day.
sir. When you talk about, so that's two separate things.
Yes,
one is they allowed what people would consider to be a centrist, old guard Democrat to run again for president, and then you say the progressive left wing is the one that didn't. They didn't choose Joe Biden. They don't have the power in that party. Chuck Schumer is out there, writing 8 strongly worded questions to Donald Trump about getting. The progressives are the one going, people in this country want Medicare for all. Do something. They're the ones that have a principled agenda that they are going to put forth that all the Democrats have run from under the guise of we have to be moderate and we have to be centrist. But that doesn't appeal to changing the culture and dynamic of how this government should work by the people, for the people, of the people.
That's a great argument, and I don't disagree. What I'm saying to you is that
we're done here.
What I am saying to you, however, is that the messenger matters. And when you have somebody in their 70s like Bernie at the time, when you have somebody in their late 70s approaching their 80s like
Trump
Joe
is 78,
Biden.
He could barely get up the stairs at the airport.
But the GOP is the one that lives on their tradition, old school ways, not necessarily wanting things to change. We want free market capitalism. We want closed borders. We want strong national security. This is what they say. And their message is resolute and the same, even though their tactics obviously vary. When you look at the left, there always seems to be something new, at least in the eyes of a lot of people. The Democratic Party looks very, very fragmented. You look at them and you're saying, okay, is it the progressive left? Is it centrist? Who are we vibing with? Who are we flowing with? Who's going to get it done? Who can beat Trump? Because you got to think about the competition. If Trump, and I've often said this too, they said, why is Trump so popular? Somebody asked me this a few months ago, and I said, let me tell y'all something. You have certain voters out there, and they're looking at you, and they say, okay, Jon Stewart's a voter. Well, Jon Stewart's looking at you, and he hears you say, look, we've got to fix our economy. We've got to, patrol our borders. We've got to do a better job of making sure we take care of the desolate and the disenfranchised. Think about them. Think about small businesses throughout this country, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have another candidate that comes along and they say, the hell with them. They ain't worth a damn. They're crooks. They're no good bastards. I can't stand them, and you shouldn't either. The American people who voted for Trump are like, yeah, we love that. That's what we're talking about, because that's how they feel about our elected officials. So they think they have somebody speaking their language that has enough venom, enough hostility, enough disgust with the nation's capital, and they're saying he's not one of them, he's one of us. That's why he's popular, but J.D. Vance might not be. That's why he's popular, but Marco Rubio wasn't. That's why he's popular, but Ted Cruz wasn't, etc.
He's got the touch. He's the charismatic demagogue that can do that. So in your
demagogue
mind, you're
against the status quo.
This may be a one-off. So who inherits? Because he can't constitutionally run again. Or do you think, in the same way that he went, and by the way, I don't know if this happens to people when they're talking to you, but all of a sudden, I'm talking much faster than I've ever talked before in my entire life, and I'm switching things around, and I'm moving my hands, and I'm doing this, and I've never spoken like this in my entire life, and I am scared because I don't know how I'm going to stop. And I keep wanting to say, Stephen A. Smith. I want to say your whole name.
That's right. Well, Stephen
What's happening to me, Stephen?
Stephen A. works. You haven't spoken to me enough, because if you spoke to me enough, it'd be Stephen A., not just Stephen A. Smith.
Really?
That's right.
Do you think I could ever get to the point where it's just Stephen A.?
Yeah, I do. I think after today you will get there.
I'd like that very much.
I think after today you will get there.
I'd like that.
You know what I'm saying? Because I'm your brother. You know what I'm saying?
You're a good
so you'll
man.
do that.
Listen to this, though. I do want to ask you this.
Yeah.
Because so your name now, because as you're observing this, you're pushing those buttons. You're the one saying, as Trump had said, yes, it is corrupt. It is, these people are bums. They don't have your best. And now that has thrust you into that conversation.
Yes.
And the question is that something that appeals to the vanity? Is it something that appeals to your principle, to your morality? Where do you take that interest, and how do you manifest?
People think I'm interested in being an elected official. I have no desire to be that. I'd have to give up a lot of money to do that, first of all. I don't want to do that.
I don't know if you know that, but the rules have changed. You don't.
A lot of my money.
Not only that.
A lot of my money. See, I earn my money.
Stephen A. meme coin would be rolling billions of dollars.
But check this out.
If you were the president of the United States.
I feel you on that, but the way I look at it is that the money that I have earned working my ass off all of these years, now I would have to curry favor, which means I would be owned, and I ain't having that. So I'm not interested in that at all. But having said that, like I consider you to be and various others, I want to be a major player in terms of a voice and a conduit for change. I want to make sure that people know that the BS has got to stop.
A facilitator.
Oh, yeah, I don't mind doing that. I don't mind doing that at all. You want to be a hellraiser. You want to make sure you make people uncomfortable and that they're not going to get away with the BS that they've been getting away with, because I believe white, black, and everything in between, society as a whole, by and large, are a lot of great, God-fearing individuals that can get along just fine. I think the politicians in this country have served to divide us and paint us against one another for their own selfish deeds. And I think that they have contributed to the demise of this country. So I don't mind calling them out at all. I don't give a damn who it is. It could be a councilman, it could be a mayor, it could be a governor, it could be a senator or a representative, the president himself. I could care less. Whoever needs to go needs to go. And I'm about that.
Well, it's been a pleasure. I do have to say, if you had run for president.
Yes.
3 years ago, when the New York Knickerbockers signed a young point guard named Jalen Brunson.
Yes.
Stephen A. Smith went on television.
Yeah.
Might have been ESPN.
Yes.
Sat there and he looked dead in the camera.
Yes.
Right in the eyes. And he said to the people of America, white, black, and everything in between, Jalen Brunson ain't the guy.
Okay. Yeah.
To me, that's an impeachable offense, and I would not have voted.
Can I respond? Can I respond?
You may.
First of all, let me say something. The president would never say.
I may never stop talking like this.
I was wrong. Which Jalen Brunson reminds me of, and he reminded me of that night, Game 6, when they beat Boston. He always reminds me of every time he says it. But here's the thing. At that time, Kevin Durant with Kyrie Irving was supposed to be arriving in New York. Right. They had missed out on getting those guys, and they gave us Jalen Brunson. Now I ask you respectfully, especially at that particular moment in time, KD, as in Kevin Durant, with Kyrie Irving, and we are all anticipating them coming to the Garden, okay? And then we find out they going to Brooklyn. They changed their mind at the 11th hour. Kyrie got KD to change it.
The subject, sir.
And we got Jalen Brunson. I'm sorry. What a crime that I felt that way at the time. I don't feel that way now, but at the time, I'm sorry I felt that way. I stand by my position.
Important context. And I just want to say to the people, when you turned and you said, and I will tell you, I saw the soul of Stephen A. Smith after dark. And I liked what I saw. My man. Stephen A. Smith, 2 new SiriusXM shows, WN in September. And Stephen A. Smith on YouTube.